In this video, we will demonstrate how to onboard a new AWS account into Prisma Cloud. And as we perform the onboarding steps, we will also enable the data security module. We could edit an existing AWS account that we had previously onboarded and then enable the data security feature. But in this demo, we'll start from scratch and enable data security as part of the initial onboarding procedure. We are already logged into our Prisma Cloud account. To start the onboarding process, navigate to Settings and then Cloud Accounts. Click New Cloud Account and select AWS from the options in the dialog box. In the first step of the onboarding wizard, we will need to configure the cloud account name, so I'll go ahead and modify the name from the default. Next, select the mode for this account, Monitor or Monitor and Protect. Monitor requires read permissions for the account, and Monitor and Protect requires read-write permissions. We'll select Monitor, which is the default. Next, use the checkbox to select the data security feature and enable it. And then when we're all set, click on Next. From the Configure Account step in the onboarding workflow, click Create Stack. We will use a CloudFormation template to create the resources that are required on our AWS account so that Prisma Cloud has the permissions to read the necessary APIs and the CloudTrail SNS log data. The CloudFormation template is configured to default to the Northern Virginia region, so you may need to change the region to where your AWS deployment is located before you create the stack. If we navigate to the console of the targeted AWS account, we can monitor the stack creation process. You have the option to modify the stack name, but we'll go ahead and stick with the default. And make note that the Prisma Cloud role name is Prisma Cloud Read-Only Role with DLP. After verifying the configuration, click Create Stack. Now the stack is being created. You can click Refresh to monitor the progress of the stack creation process and make sure there are no errors that have occurred. So I'll go ahead and monitor this process, and I'll go ahead and click Refresh a few additional times. And we'll go ahead and wait until we see in the left-hand column that the create is complete. If I click the Outputs tab, there are two new resources that have been created, the role ARN and the SNS ARN. The role ARN is required to access your S3 buckets, and the SNS ARN topic is required for the forward scan event notifications. I need to enter this information into Prisma Cloud, so we'll copy and paste each ARN into the respective text box for these values. I can also verify the resources that have been created in the stack by clicking the Resources tab, and I can see the role and the SNS resources in the table. Next, we will create the CloudTrail log. CloudTrail is an auditing log for AWS. We are setting up CloudTrail to monitor write events and the SNS topic so that Prisma Cloud Data Security Module knows when new objects are added to storage and forward scanning is triggered to pick up any new or modified files. I will also mention that there is a link in the wizard dialog box that takes you to TechDocs, the online documentation, and the entire onboarding procedure for AWS is documented in the admin guide. So let's go back to the AWS console, and we'll go ahead and navigate to the CloudTrail service page. And to get started, click Create Trail. Start by giving the trail a name. So I'll go ahead and enter the name CTrail for CloudTrail-demo. For this demo, we'll go ahead and deselect the option for encryption and log file validation. But I do want to make sure that I enable the option for SNS notification delivery. For the setting, create a new SNS topic, select Existing. And then use the drop-down list to select the SNS topic, Prisma Cloud SNS. And when you're all finished, click Next. In the Choose Log Events section, select the checkbox for data events. Next, deselect the checkbox for read under API activity. And as I scroll down in the S3 bucket section, for the parameters all current and future S3 buckets and individual bucket selection, also deselect the read checkbox. And when you're ready, click Next. This will take us to the Review and Create page. So we'll scroll down the page, we'll verify that everything is correct, and then click Create Trail when we're ready. And we can see from the table that the trail has been created successfully and is currently logging. Once we've completed creating the CloudTrail, let's navigate back to Prisma Cloud. And before clicking Next, just verify that the external ID has been configured for the AWS account in question, and then click Next. The next step is to configure data security. You have the option to select all the S3 buckets from your AWS account, or you can customize and select specific buckets using the checkboxes. Select whether you want to scan forward only or forward and backward. Forward scan is enabled by default and cannot be disabled. Prisma Cloud scans all new files added or edited by a user in the bucket in near real time. When you select backward scan, Prisma Cloud starts scanning all existing files in the bucket in a batch operation. Depending on the number of files in your bucket, backward scanning may cost more. So I have a bucket in mind that I want to add, so I'll go ahead and search for it. Select the checkbox, the scan type is set to forward and backward, and I'm all set to go with my S3 bucket, and then click Next. On the next step of the workflow, we'll go ahead and select an account group for this new account, and we'll just use the default account group for this demo. Then click Next. We can now monitor the progress of Prisma Cloud connecting to the AWS account. For data security, we need to validate that the status for CloudTrail and storage is healthy. And once the status is displayed and it's green, that means that the connection has been successful and everything looks good. And we can go ahead and click Done. So that is how you onboard a new AWS account into Prisma Cloud with the data security feature enabled.